Hello everyone, welcome so much for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. I don't know what, every day
I
this
know.
week I've got the days wrong.
Yeah, it's been one of these weeks, and we've been streaming live every
Every
week,
day.
so every
Every day.
day.
Every day this week. We have two fantastic filmmakers with us today who took part in the Lift-Off sessions back in April and were the winners of the sessions. So we are going to sit down with them and do a commentary roundtable and find out a little bit more about their films, what inspired the ideas and what problems they overcame whilst the films are running muted in the background. It's awesome. I love this. Absolutely love this event.
Yeah.
So if you are watching, please ask away in the chat room. I'll be keeping my eye on that and I'll be passing the questions onto the filmmakers directly.
We had some good questions from our
We
chat
really
room
did.
yesterday, so no pressure.
Yeah, it sparked some amazing conversations. So do chat away in there.
Amazing. Well, in that case, I think it is time to say hello to Chris and Liam.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hi, Liam. Thank you
Hi.
so much for joining us. Why don't we do a quick introduction to who you both are and where you're calling in from today? Liam, let's start with you.
Cool. So I'm Liam. I'm calling in from Southampton. I'm a filmmaker, obviously, like writer, director. Studying my masters at Southern University at the minute, and my film was Gisette, which is a World War II short film.
Very
Amazing.
cool. It's great to hear that you're studying your masters and that you're making films and that they're doing well on the festival circuit. So I look forward to seeing and hearing a little bit more about that. And then, Chris, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Chris. I'm calling in from the United States over in Omaha, Nebraska. I started out filmmaking about 3 years ago. I started actually in the paranormal world and then kind of switched things up and got my degree in filmmaking from just Metro Community College here in Omaha. And then actually, this film, I Am Josh, has been 20 years in the making. So.
Wow, yeah. 20 years in the making. Well, I understand that as I've seen the film and I've read it up about it. But for our viewers, that's an interesting statement to make. And we're actually going to start with your film first.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? Let's get it on here. As you start telling us a little bit about it, Chris. So, for the people watching this, could you tell us a little bit about essentially the log line? If you give us that to start with, to give us an idea.
Yeah, Josh was a high school student at Roundtable, artist as far as he was filmmaking at the age of, I mean, at a young age, 14, we knew of, making his own films. And he was struck in 2001 by a drunk driver on his way home from play practice and was killed.
Yeah, it's awful. The whole story is horrific. But as you've just mentioned, he was a filmmaker from the age of 14, so he managed to capture a lot of moments of his life, which is obviously in this documentary. How did you come across Josh? Did you know him personally?
Yeah, I actually went to high school with him. So it was a very hard time. He was such a live just individual, you know. I mean, he just everyone knew who he was in school. He was that kid that he was just so nice to everyone. So talented in many ways. He could sing, he could act, he could make films. It was a very personal film, so it was very hard to make.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But also, in some ways, perhaps, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe also a cathartic experience. Not only for you, but for everybody who then gets to enjoy the film and sort of keep experiencing that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was. If it wasn't for his mom, there's no way I would have done this film. When I came up with the idea of doing this film, I first person I contacted was his mom. And she had asked why now, like 20 years later, why? Um, and I said because I was actually doing a paranormal investigation at a local theater here, and they all knew who he was. And so I was like, man, that was 18 years after his death. I'm like 18 years and people are still talking about him. And so it was time to do it. That I wanted to show the world that the person he was. There's no doubt that Alexander Payne is from Omaha, Nebraska. People would have known who Josh Brockington was if he had still been alive.
Yeah, I mean, having someone talk about you that many years after is really nice. So I think it's a great thing that you've made this documentary. So where did you start? What was your process? Did you just sift through all of the home footage, or did you start with the interviews?
I started with the interviews. It was very hard to get people to speak about it, and that's how much he impacted people 20 years later. Even his close friends still didn't want to talk about it. So it was a very hard process to find people that were willing to go ahead and speak about it. Um, and then his mom had all of his tapes, his 8 millimeter tapes. So I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't have an 8 millimeter camera. So I had to go buy one to transfer it all into digital. So I spent over 40 plus hours going through old footage. She sent me
Wow.
everything, the
Yeah.
VHS from when he was a little kid to all of his home videos. So I have all of his movies actually that he was in process of making. So my plan is to actually finish his movies for him by editing it and really putting them out there so that people can see the talent
That's
he had.
amazing.
Yeah, that's a really nice.
So how many films are we talking here? You say all of his
Oh
films.
man. At least I know 3 to 4 that he was working on.
Very
The one
cool.
that's showing right now, that was he was just a different character, like he'd be sitting at home bored and he would just create this film like this. So this one is finished. So I was struggling over what to do for the intro. Like I could not figure out what do I want to do for the intro. And then I came across this film and I'm like, this is perfect. I'm going to introduce it with the film he made for this film.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, it's a shame that it is on mute, because it'd be really fun to hear what it's all about. But now we're enticing our audience to go and watch it. So is it anywhere that this will be available in the next coming weeks, or is it currently available online anywhere?
Yeah, so it is already on a Biddy Space, which is a streaming service over here, as well as Amazon Prime. So
Oh,
it is
cool.
up on there too.
Cool.
Yeah, so definitely, if this is already enticing you, go and check it out on Amazon Prime. That's really, really cool to know.
What an amazing story, because I just keep thinking at the moment about how, in relation to you specifically, but how a lot of artists say that obviously, like, you live on through your art, it's all those ideas about legacy and that kind of thing. So I just think that's very special that you're creating that for everyone to continue experiencing. That's very cool. So
Yeah,
how old
I,
would
re-
he
I
have
really
been
just
when he
wanted to
was
bring him
making these projects?
Go ahead. What's that? It was
Sorry,
cutting out.
so how old would he have been when he was making these projects?
I would have been the same age, 14, when he
14.
was making all these films. A lot of my friends were in it as well. I was off doing a whole different thing. At that time in the age, I was out playing hockey, but everyone in school knew he was creating some different, out of the world films. He was obsessed with aliens and UFOs. So it was just like he's just creating a whole different world for everyone. And then at the same time, he would go and he would do the play Oklahoma and have the lead. And his mind was always going and it never stopped.
Amazing. So, was this the first documentary you'd ever taken on, or had you sort of dipped your toe in documentary before?
I did one before. It's called Haunted Past. It was on a paranormal one here in a place called Manila, Iowa. And it was the worst film I ever made. It was a school project, but it won the college film festival. And I was like,
Well, there you
I
go.
told the judges, I'm like, I don't know how this won. Like, it was just horrible. And then after that, I worked on another project with my friend Josh Hurd called A Brush with Evil 3. So then I really got into how everything is supposed to really go because I think he's on his 10th or 11th film. So
Wow.
I really got to see a lot of that. And it just, I wanted to get out of the paranormal aspect of filmmaking and go into something that's going to actually mean something to people and
Sure.
inspire them. So I created this and I'm working on another one as well.
Great.
So do you only work in the documentary filmmaking kind of sector, or are you also looking to do narratives?
I'm just doing documentaries right now.
That's
I
really
did
cool.
in college. I had to write 100 and some page script, which I did on, it's called 1997, and I would love to produce that someday, but just, with everything going on, I'd have to go down to Phoenix, Arizona, and just the money and the budget I'd have to have. So
Sure.
I'm trying to, I'd love to do it.
So, when you said your first foray into documentary making ended up, well, to use your word, horrible, what would you say was the main lesson from that then that you took forwards into making this? If we start with speaking from like a technical level, what lessons did you learn?
Audio. I
Yeah.
hate
Yeah.
audio. I think it's the worst, but definitely on that first one, it is just audio. I didn't mic people up. I didn't have it right. We filmed through a bunch of GoPros just because it's paranormal. You're walking around, um, and you don't want the mic always rubbing on somebody because you're gonna hear everything. So I think audio was the big takeaway from that.
Yeah, and it's a point that we talk about over and over and over again. The audio is the most important part of a film. It's something like, if you have bad audio, 80% of the audience will walk away. But if the visuals aren't great, then 80% of the audience will stay, but the audio is great. So, yeah, it's so important to have that happy
Yeah.
balance of audio. And that can
Yeah.
be tough. That can be really tough, especially when you're documentary filmmaking. Especially if it's on the fly.
100%.
Yeah.
Again, because a lot of documentary, you've got things like outdoor scenes, which are, of course, more difficult.
Wind!
Yeah,
So
and
much
things
wind.
like that. But especially like obstock style, at least with the interviews like this, you can do things like lapel miking. But yeah, with obstock especially, it can be tough. So sound would have been your number one takeaway then. What else?
Probably editing, just to make sure you had the right cuts line up. I think cutting can be, I've seen some people that will do editing and um, you can tell how rough of a cut it is now that I've had more experience in it. And I think that is the big takeaway. Like with the Josh film, I mean, I watched it 10 times before I put it out. And I noticed up to the ninth edit that there was a couple cuts that I was like, I got to change this. So I think getting very picky about what cuts I'm doing and where it's placed at.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were making this film, did you have that structure in place that this is what you want to achieve, or was it kind of free flowing and you just interviewed and then you structured it after?
I did the interviews first and then I just structured it together. I didn't have like a plan of how I wanted to go. I mean, I changed the intro probably 5, 6 different times just because I didn't like how it was going. And then once I hit that intro and then the first interview, it just all flowed. It was like, okay, now they're talking about this, so now I got to put in this part of the old footage of him. So it really flowed once I got the beginning going.
Nice. We can see here now that the interview with who's being interviewed here?
That is Jenny Tien. She actually went to prom with him and homecoming with him. That was actually his elementary, middle school, and high school crush.
Oh.
Oh.
So I was going to ask you about what you shot on, because it looks really clear and the way that you've shot it looks great. So what equipment did you use?
It was just a Sony A6000. That's all I shot with a mirrorless camera. I tested around with red cameras, and I used to have a Black Magic camera. And for how expensive they are, I see a mirrorless Sony camera A series is just as good as they are. So I just shot on a simple little mirrorless camera.
Yeah, I mean, it's light and effective as well. So if you wanted to move around and get creative with shots, you're not limited to the heaviness of the camera. So that's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, great.
So, how did you find sifting through lots of archive material? One of my favourite documentary filmmakers, Asif Kapadia, who we actually saw speak at the Cannes Film Festival, he obviously uses so much archive to the point where he actually needed 2 archive producers all on themselves for his most recent one, Maradona. But what was your process? How do you decide what you're keeping, what to get rid of? Like, I guess you just have to be pretty ruthless.
Yeah, I went through every single tape and watched hours upon hours. And
Wow.
I did cutting of quite a bit of it and to see, okay, is this gonna match in? There's a lot of stuff that did not make it. On the anniversary, or on his birthday, I ended up releasing the second part, which was all footage of him and Dan, and so I used a lot of that extra in that. Um, for me, it was very emotional watching a lot of that stuff. There was a lot of tears that were definitely shed throughout that. Due to the fact that just like I knew him personally and just to see him again and hear his voice and that he was back alive, that
Yeah.
it brought up a lot of memories. I mean, the accident happened on my birthday, so every year I do have to live with, you know, that he was killed on my birthday. And so now I've taken it from a negative though and turned it into a positive, and I'll take stuff out to where he's buried and do that for his mom, especially since she doesn't live here no more.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Well,
Wow.
speaking of Josh's mum, what was the reaction when people watched this film, this amazing tribute?
Um, so she had flown into Omaha. She lives now in South Carolina. But we showed it at a movie theater here for the premiere. And so there was a bunch of classmates, and then she flew in. She was very, very emotional. Dan, who was the passenger in the car with him, his parents had showed up too, so that was amazing seeing them as well. And at the end, both families had come up to me and said, you know, you brought our sons back alive,
Yeah.
and that meant a lot to me, knowing that 20 years has passed and I can show the world their kids who they were.
Wow.
Yeah, that's lovely. And so it's currently still so it's on Amazon Prime, and is it still doing the festival circuit as well, or is it now just available online?
Yeah, it is doing the festival circuit here in the States as well. I'll probably do a couple more international. I'm hoping there's one in Iowa that it's being shown September 7th through the 13th they switched to virtual as well. So it's up for the running for the best documentary. So
Oh, cool, great. And then what is next? So what's next for you as a filmmaker?
I'm currently working on a project called We Have Survived. It is about Holocaust survivors. I had the chance to interview some in Washington, D.C. at the Holocaust Museum. And then COVID hit, so I'm hoping to get back out there to finish up. It was that's another emotional one just because you're hearing the stories of what they went through. I mean, they were little kids at that time, and
Yeah, goodness
one of the
me.
survivors was actually supposed to be dead. They got sent over to the line that was supposed to be gassed, and
Oh
she's
my
like,
god.
"Nope." So she took off running over to her mom, and they let her live. So
Wow. Wow. Have So yeah, you like touching upon documentaries that are gonna bring that. I don't know what am I trying to say. You like heartfelt documentaries that can bring closure to people,
Yeah.
essentially. Have you thought about doing other styles of documentary, or is this where you thrive?
I kind of after doing this, I kind of thrive on this. I have some more in the plans too. I'll probably end up doing some paranormal here and there as well, just because
Yeah.
that's where I started, and it was just a break I needed from doing paranormal. I didn't want to be that filmmaker that only does paranormal stuff. You know, like
Sure.
it was okay. I can be something different than just the paranormal.
Nice.
Well, as a documentary nerd myself, I'm just dying to ask you, what's your favourite documentary?
Man, there's so many good
I know, I
documentaries.
know. It's a mean question.
That's such a tough one.
I
I mean,
know.
I like watching a lot of independent, not known ones.
Mm.
Cool. Well, give
There
me
was
some
a
good ones. I'll add them to my list.
well, how about a docu-series that was on TV?
Okay.
I think Hunting Hitler was one of my favorite ones.
Oh
That
my
was on the
god,
History
James talks about
Channel.
this all the
Does
time.
he?
Yeah, I loved it. I think they did from the cinematography to that to everything about that. I think they did such a fantastic job.
Okay, we'll definitely check it
Do you know
out.
where that is available?
I don't. I know it's on the History Channel app, I believe, still,
Okay.
that you can watch that. So, yeah, check that out. They go on a mission to track to see if Hitler actually escaped Nazi Germany after, and they track him all the way down to South America. And the evidence they pull is phenomenal. I mean, they find so much evidence down in South America to prove that he had escaped.
Well, I know a lot of Nazis did flee to South America, and yeah, there's several films that sort of show that. And sort of some links with the Vatican, although I don't know, I won't say that. But I didn't know about Hitler himself, so okay.
Nice.
Yeah, check that out. They spend a lot of money,
Okay.
a lot of money. They're looking for U-boats. They're looking for everything possible to trace Adolf Hitler down in South America. So
Okay.
it was fantastic.
Cool.
And Liam, do you have any favourite documentaries?
I watched one that was shown at Southampton Film Week last year called Maiden. It was about I think it was the first all-female racing team to compete in I think it was like the Beefeater Around the World race in the late 90s, and it was a really inspirational documentary about this one woman who was so stubborn. Everyone kept telling her, no, you can't do it, and she's like, well, I'm going to do it now. I'm determined to do it, and it was really good.
Sounds great.
It was incredible.
Fierce girl power.
Absolutely. One of my favourite documentaries is The Look of Silence. I saw it on Netflix, and it's just incredible. It's about the genocide in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Highly recommend if you're into the documentary filmmaking.
Yeah, that was Academy nominated, and was sort of a sequel to The Act of Killing, which was also Academy nominated. Two amazing docs.
We've got a comment in the chat room here from Peter saying, "Thank you for sharing your story, Chris. Really nice."
Oh, and hi Peter, and thank you for joining us. Peter always joins us for our streams, and it's a pleasure to have you with us again.
Thanks for that, Peter.
So, Chris, is there any final thoughts or anything else that you'd like to share regarding your documentary before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I hope everybody goes and take their time to check it out. I think it was 53 minutes long, which I felt was a perfect amount for a documentary. I think if you can go too long, then it gets boring after a while. So I thought this was perfect time. I just want people to really know who Josh was, the person he could have been. I just think right now, instead of, if he had still been alive, this would be him sitting here, not me, just because of the talent he had. He actually inspired me to get into filmmaking. So just check it out. His goal was to be into Hollywood and to be seen all over the place. And that's my goal, is to show him all over where I can. So that way, they know who he was.
Well, such an amazing story, very personal. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us and our viewers.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everybody go check it out on Amazon.
I've just seen which point it's on, and I watched this earlier today, and I was just smiling the whole time he was singing this song. It just instantly, you gravitate towards his performance. So thank you so much for making this documentary and sharing his story with the world. Okay.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
No
Thank
worries.
you so much.
Do stick around,
Yep.
and then we'll move on to Liam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So as Claire grabs your film, here it starts. Liam, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your story, Gisette, and what inspired it? And if you do have a short log line, then that would be wonderful.
Yep. So Gisette was our final major project for our last year of studying at Solent University. It was me and a group of 7 others made our FMP. So the logline is: in the height of World War II, a wounded German soldier flees an ambush, only to find himself being reluctantly cared for by a mysterious French woman.
Cool, you memorised that one.
That. Yeah, and I was the writer and sort of executive producer as well, because I was just trying to keep everyone organised, because I like being organised with everyone. But yeah, I had a great team as well with me, so we all worked together and made a film that we're all really proud of. It turned out it was a lot bigger than anything else we worked on over uni.
Yeah,
we've mostly done like small rom-coms
an
and things.
ambitious project. The first thing Natalie and I said, all the months ago when we first saw your film was, what an ambitious project as a student and a group of emerging filmmakers.
I mean, costume dramas are so hard to get right regardless. And
You've
the
got
fact that you've
different
done it.
languages going on. You've got, as Nat says, the period to get right. So why, I guess, is the question. Of all the things you sort of could have done to make your life easier, what inspired you to go so big?
Well, we thought because it was our final major project, it might be the last time we all got to work together. We thought, well, it was go big or go home, really. But we said that as well, but then we also didn't want to make it too unrealistic. So we tried to keep it to a sort of small, contained story. That's the heart of it is a relationship between two people. And then have that emotional core so that we don't get carried away by making anything too big. And then I think we went through a few ideas. We had a few different variations at the start. Like, we had to pitch our film the first week back in third year, and we pitched an entirely different film then. So then it sort of evolved, and I think just in one meeting, because our idea wasn't working, we spent the whole day in the library trying to think of a new idea. I can't remember who it was. It was either me or someone else in the group just put like, how about we do a World War II film? And everyone was like, you know what? Yeah.
Why not? Let's do it.
So I take it you all love war films. So as an inspiration.
Have you seen Hunting Hitler?
I haven't, but I think we have to check it out now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good connection between you both. Cool. So how did you get hold of these costumes and the amazing truck that we saw at the beginning?
Well, originally we were just going to try and, I don't know what we were thinking, to be honest, but we were going to try and find a farmhouse and just decorate it to make it look like it was in 1940s France. And looking back, I think we were setting the bar very high. But when we were looking for costumes, we found a company based not far away from us called History in the Making. And we got in touch with them originally just about hiring costumes. But then as my production designer, Kima, she looked on their website and saw they do set design and vehicle hire as well. So we went to visit them, and they were really helpful, and they had all these amazing World War II trucks and costumes, and they helped us out by building the set as well.
Amazing.
And they were
wow.
Yeah, and we couldn't have done it without them.
So I know this is a little bit of a cheeky question, but I think it will help our viewers just to understand what your budget was and how much it did cost to hire the costumes and the props.
Yeah.
I think it was around, they gave us a really good deal just because I think they help out a few student films. They do a lot of other stuff for the BBC as well. They do like obviously high stuff, but then they make some space to do student films as well. They've done a few with Solent.
Yeah,
so they gave us the vehicles, the costumes, and the set, and we used their studio. I think it was for about 5,000.
Amazing.
For
it's worth
about
saying.
A week of shooting.
It's worth saying, just to pick up on what you've said there. We say this quite a lot. It's always worth reaching out to companies because there are a lot of companies in the creative industries that do genuinely want to help the next generation of filmmakers, or not even necessarily emerging talent, but just indie talent in general. We know of lots of companies that make, as you said, space to sort of give discounts, things like that, to smaller projects. So I think that's always worth remembering, isn't it?
Definitely.
You don't ask,
Yeah,
you don't get.
never hurt to send an email.
Yeah, exactly.
Or pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone, then you speak to someone directly and get the right contact details. Yeah. Cool.
Now, a random question in some ways, but we have got a reason for this. How did you cast your film? Because we know your lead actor there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, Daniel Anderson. Yeah.
So Dan Anderson came to one of our actor showcases. Would have been maybe a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
We think he's fantastic. How did you go about casting?
Well, it was one thing going into the film. We said when if we're going to make a World War II film, we want to do it properly and authentically, and with enough respect, obviously, to tackle a subject with such emotional weight. So we deliberately were going to find a French actress and German actors to play all the speaking roles, because that's one thing I always irritates me when it's like German soldiers speaking like perfect English and all this stuff, and it completely ruins it. So we looked, we got a sort of a short list together of a few actors and actresses, and I had a few auditions, and then Daniel and Leah, our main actress, they stood out to us straight away, and it was we couldn't have made it without them, and they really brought it to life.
Amazing.
Cool. I know that a lot of filmmakers use Spotlight or Mandy.com. Did you go down any of those avenues?
I think we. I can't remember because it was my producer and director that did the casting. I think it was one of those websites. I think it was possibly Mandy or Star Now. It was one of those
Yeah,
ones.
Star
Yeah.
Now's
We just
also
looked at a load of
free
different
to use,
profiles.
which is great. Cool.
Cool. How many days was the shoot? Because obviously, how long is it? It's about 13 minutes long, your film. So
Yeah.
how many days did it take to shoot?
We only shot it in 4 days, which it was very, very packed 4 days.
I bet.
yeah,
I
so-
bet.
So we shot it roughly in order. We shot the outdoor scenes on the first day, and I don't know if it was stress, but I'd made myself really ill somehow on the first day. So we were outside in this big barn, and I just sat with my jacket around me, huddling in the corner while they were all shooting. But yeah, then we shot, and then over the next 3 days, we managed to get it all done, and it was literally in, shoot everything, and out again, basically. But we got everything we needed.
So where were you shooting?
We shot at it was near Portsmouth,
Okay.
near the History of the Making Studios, and they had an outdoor area as well. We managed to get it all done with their studios and their space.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a short drive away from where we're all based in Southampton.
Yeah.
It
So
worked out really well.
far, everything sounds like it went swimmingly, apart from you getting a cold on the first day. I'm sure
Yeah,
there
no
were
idea.
other hiccups along the way. Do you have any stories or any problems that you overcame on the shoot days?
There was a few things, just trying to obviously timing, because we were quite rushed on set. We had to get everything going, and because we hadn't made a film on this scale before, it was quite a steep learning curve for all of us to manage to adapt to make it all in time. And the effects for the scene later on, I'm not sure whether to spoil it or not, but the climactic scene that required some special effects, and we went through a few different variations of what we were going to do.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
we had an amazing makeup artist that was going to do. I think it was something where, as Gisette scratches, she had some makeup where, like, if you drew her hands across the soldier's face, it would make scratches. But just because we were so rushed for time, we didn't unfortunately get to put that in. But yeah, so having to sort of adapt to the quick shooting schedule was one of the main struggles, I think.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that you have to be quick on your feet, and you do face those problems. But there is always a solution, and you
Yeah.
do find them. And obviously, as viewers, we didn't know that that's something that you wanted to have. So it's always more disappointing to yourself as a filmmaker that you didn't get
Sure.
that shot that you wanted or get
Yeah.
that special effect. But at the end
Yeah,
of the
definitely.
day, the audience didn't know that. So actually, that problem isn't a problem.
Yeah,
It's
we were
just
quite
what you
lucky
make
in
out
that
of
we
it.
didn't really have any film breaking issues. That worked out quite well.
I mean, I'm just seeing there at the top of the headboard, you've got things like the cross, like the frame is filled with like lots of great little set details as well as the costume. You've a lot of attention to detail there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our production designer Kima. She helped with all the sets and the props that History in the Making had for us. They had a big warehouse that we were able to use. So she chose what she wanted to put in all the frames, and we tried to, because in a short film we couldn't, and we wanted to keep the script not too dialogue heavy and just use a lot of character acting. So we wanted to suggest a lot of Gisette's background just through her house and the set, which I think came across quite well.
It works, yeah.
Oh, we're coming up to the climatic scene in a moment. But how many team members or how many crew were involved?
So there was the core 8 of us that was in the FMP group. So that was writer, director, producer, camera up, DOP, sound guy, editor, and production designer. And then we brought in a few other students from just across the uni, across the different film courses. So we had a few people we had an amazing lighting department that really made the set come to life. We had a few grips and camera assistants, a great AC. And then I ended up getting, because we cast real German actors for the main roles, but then for the extra soldiers, let's just get a few of our mates from around and put them in German uniforms to stand in the background.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? I mean,
But
to have
they did convincingly.
when you get a crew like that and you have the opportunity to use as many people as possible, then that is amazing. I just saw the snap that you were on about. But here goes with the scratching.
Coming up.
So
Yeah, in a second.
yeah. And this part.
Yeah, this was a it was intense because everyone wanted to be on set when we were filming this final bit.
Sure.
It was just so intense. Then I think at one point the stunt coordinator said, "Right, we need a clear set for this." So everyone had to go upstairs and just listen over the radio to how it was going.
And then I just can't believe that you did that. That's a bold choice to make.
Yeah, so in the start we had a lot of different endings. We thought, oh, maybe her and Friedrich run away, or they both join the French resistance and fight against the Nazis. But then I think we thought it's even a bit disrespectful to sort of treat it with like such levity. And because we spoke to our actresses, I believe her grandmother read the script and said like that is what happened to some people she knew and things like that. And we thought it's quite dark, it's accurate to the time period, and that was the thing as well. We wanted to accurately represent the time period and not oversimplify it with cartoonish impressions of good guys and bad guys. There was horrors committed in the war, and even though we had a German actor as our main character, it's important to reflect that the main character is not a good guy, and it's just something that we had to tackle.
Well, I feel like it works, and it definitely has the kind of gasp/shock element that is needed in a short film. We see so many films that, I don't want to say it, but they cop out with the endings. Yeah. They build something up and then they don't give it what it deserves, and I feel like you managed to nail that really well.
I really like what you said about the complexity of characters as well, not going down the archetype route that makes them too two-dimensional. And I'm thinking of other examples now because I've just got sort of like war films going through my head, and obviously like The Great Escape is amazing, but I was really interested when reading how that aligns with like the historical accuracy of it. And in actual fact, there are in a lot of like prisons of war, a lot of the soldiers sometimes help the prisoners with their like escape routes, for instance. Like, do you know what I mean? It's never quite as like black and white as sometimes film makes it out to be. So I love the fact that that's something you were aware of. That's cool.
So Peter's commented again in the chat room saying that looked awesome, Liam, really nice cinematography. So what did you shoot on?
We shot on the Arri Alexa because Southern University has a load of good cameras that we can use, and that's the one that they specify for FMPs. So yeah, we managed to get a lot out of the colour grade and the edit with that, and it was a really fun camera to shoot on. Yeah,
great. And I mean, you're doing your masters at the moment, so then when you're out of there and I'm sure film equipment is included in that as well, but when you come out of education, there's a really amazing company called Movie Tech, who also like to help independent filmmakers and filmmakers who are starting out. So I highly recommend getting in contact with them once you're kind of making your own films outside of the education system.
Yeah.
I'll write them down.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share, or any other, anything else you'd like to mention?
I did just have one fun story as the writer, because when we thought of the first names for the characters, one of the first things we thought of Friedrich and Gisette. And then as I was writing, I was like, I need a last name for Friedrich, and I sort of Googled popular German surnames of the 40s, and I found Kruger. I didn't realise that I'd accidentally called him Freddy Krueger, Friedrich Krueger. So I only realised when we were shooting, my director said, "Liam, you called this guy Freddy Krueger." I was like, "I did not." A little reference in there.
So, and that stayed.
Yeah, it's still like Friedrich Krueger. It was a nice little reference.
Cool. Well, in that case, that's a great note to end on. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Oh, actually, we talked to Chris about where we can see his film. What about you, Liam? Where can we see your film with sound?
Yeah, so we're waiting to hear back from a few more festivals. I think the end of this month, and then that'll be our festival run completed. So we're looking at possibly posting it on Amazon Prime or another video hosting site. But we'll post updates on our Facebook page if anyone does want to find it. And it should hopefully release it next month for the public.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Cool. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us, and I look forward to following both of your journeys. Good luck with your masters, and good luck with your feature documentaries, Chris.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you both.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you so much.
Bye-bye. That was great.
That
I
was,
love
again...
talking to filmmakers all the time. And we're lucky because we get to do it on Tuesday when we do our next filmmaker interviews for the
Cool.
Toronto Lift-Off Film Festival. Yes. But before that, we'll be doing another roundup on Friday with the films that are currently the biggest movers of the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be on Friday at 1:00 BST. And then the other thing to say is we have got our first time filmmaker sessions, which goes live next week.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, what indie film am I going to watch next week?
There you go.
There you go.
That is your collection. There's a lot of films taking part, so I'm sure there's a lot of content on there that you'd love to watch. So give us a go instead of Netflix.
Absolutely. Always the moral of our story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much to all of you for watching and listening to the amazing stories behind those projects.
Yes.